Heidi ho there, boys and girls, and welcome back. It's July, and it's hot. And I think that pretty much sums up what's going on around here. On the farm, the chickens have stopped laying eggs because it's so darn hot. Everybody's just praying for rain to cool things off pretty much. But you know what? You and I are going to have fun because today we are going to be talking about the X-Files Season 2 episode, Red Museum. And we're going to try to talk about it out here in nature if the gnats don't drive us up a fucking wall. So, Red Museum is my comfort episode of the X-Files. And I got to thinking about it the other day, and I don't know why. It's written by Chris Carter, and if you know anything about Chris Carter's writing, he's not a good writer. And the episode Red Museum is a really good example of just how poor a writer he is. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. Just how convoluted and confusing this episode becomes. But on the flip side, that's kind of the reason why I like it so much. If anyone knows me, they know I love convoluted and weird shit. But Chris Carter's writing is even a little too much for me. And again, we'll talk about why this episode fails in a written sense. But there's many other things about it that's great. There's some great MSR moments. The side characters are just delightful in this episode, except for one who's complete and utter shit. But let's talk about it. Let's talk about Red Museum. So... cheers. Lapis says drink more water. What you should be doing, especially right now, because it's as hot as hell. So the episode begins with a haunted slaughterhouse. It's kind of funny how in the span of one season, season 2, the X-Files had an episode about a cannibalism cult posing as a chicken processing plant. And now they have a haunted beef slaughterhouse fueled by alien magic. It's weird that they would put those two things in one season. Like, I could see it, like, something like that in season 2, and then on down the line, they would have another, like, creepy-ass meat packing plant. But no, they do it all in one season. I got loads more to say about that, too. It shows images of cows looking sad. Looks like a fucking PETA commercial. Oh, hello. Hi. How you doing? My cat's like not being a snob today. That's nice. Do you want to sit down and help me out here? Yes. It's never too hot for Elsa to cuddle. So, it shows cows looking sad, waiting to die, which is just fucking dark. And then it shows their dead brothers and sisters being cut up in this slaughterhouse. So shows that are supposed to be scary and unsettling. I'm thinking about NBC's show, the NBC show Hannibal, which I'm binge watching at ATM. Shows that are supposed to be unsettling or disturbing or just disgusting. They just end up making me hungry. Throughout this entire episode, I was like, oh man, when are we going to go get a hamburger, you know? So, we see this woman named Beth Kay. And she's working at the slaughterhouse. She comes home to her two sons, Gary and Stevie, who are watching television. She immediately gives her eldest son, Gary, shit because he only says, hey, he doesn't say, hey, mom. It's a very sweet moment. Again, I don't know why Chris Carter wants us to emotionally bond with these characters only to brutally traumatize and torture them. But you know what? That's kind of Chris Carter's brand, right? I mean, just look what he did to Scully, okay? So, she tells her sons to order a pizza. She goes in the bathroom, and you see that there is a creep hiding behind her bathroom mirror watching her. And I do these Twitter rewatch threads before I do my videos, and I said I didn't know the episode about the haunted slaughterhouse would trigger all my anxieties as a woman, but here we are. So, yeah. This episode is a lot like the episode Paper Hearts. It's all the fucking things that trigger me. So, Gary gets a phone call. It's cute how him and his brother race for the phone. Again, these characters are so endearing. I don't know why immediately Chris Carter turns around and just traumatizes and tortures them. But again, that's his brand. I think Chris Carter really believes that you can't have compelling storytelling unless someone, usually a woman, is getting brutally traumatized or tortured. So there you go. And it kind of gives credence to the idea that he is a very poor writer, which he is. Anyway, Gary and Stevie race each other to the phone. Gary, of course, gets there first. I had flashbacks of fighting my older brothers for the phone. He talks to someone on the phone. We don't know who it is. And I don't think we ever find out who it is. Because they convince him immediately to, like, go into the woods, which is fucking weird. Anyway, he pinches his little brother's nose, and he calls him buttcrumb, which is so cute. The X-Files has this thing where siblings have weird nicknames for each other. Samantha called baby Mulder, like, butt lunch, which was very funny. Gary says he'll be back in 5 minutes, and surprise, he's not back. His mom's super worried. She's calling the cops. And then you see, I'm guessing a few days later, it's not specified, Gary's wandering around on the road in his underpants. And some cops find him, and they see the words, "He is one," written on his back. This scene freaked me out when I was 11 and I first watched it. And it freaks me out now. I don't know who directed this episode. I want to say it was Glenn Morgan and James Wong, but I could be wrong. But when Gary, like, walks away, the effect, when it shows the thing written on his back, "He is one," is kind of blurred. And it's super scary. Like, it really hits all those points of, like, looking freaky. There's another sequence with another kid who's been mistreated very badly. And it scares me too. We'll get to it. I'm just going to do a quick content warning now. I should have done this at the beginning of the episode. This episode discusses child abuse. It discusses child exploitation, pedophilia. So go into it, beware. I mean, it's a lot of things. And as is most cases with X-Files episodes, they do these horrific things and they don't take the time to discuss or explore them. They're just, like, thrown in as this is literally thrown in as a fun science fiction subplot, and it's disgusting. But again, look who's writing it. Okay. So we get the title credits, and we see Mulder and Scully. Mulder's impressing Scully with his little fucking slides, which is always a delight. That's a trope I love to see. It's usually a trope people attach to Mulder, like when they discuss his character, that's usually something people talk about as his slides, but it's always delightful. So Mulder says the good sheriff of this town in Wisconsin, where the Canes lived, says that these teenagers are going missing, and they'll turn up and have these things written on their back, like, "He is one, she is one." And the sheriff says they're being possessed by demons. Now look, you can sit here with me, but if you bite me, you're gone, okay? I'm only going to give you one warning, all right? You a little salty mama today, ain't you? Yes, you are. She's been fighting with her siblings, probably. You want to see her? Want to see her? Say hey to the people. She's such a little She's a buttcrumb. Elsie, you're a buttcrumb. I'm using it now. I'm reclaiming that. So, it's really funny in this episode how my spouse and I rewatched the Calasari, which is another season 2 episode. Can't wait to get to reviewing it. And we said Mulder will literally endanger children on multiple occasions because he wants to see a demon possession and an exorcism. But he will not believe Scully when she is having these faith-based revelations, which always turn out to be true. So, fuck me. Anyway, they go to this town in Wisconsin. They meet the sheriff. The sheriff has anger management problems. I don't think he needs to be in law enforcement. But later on, we'll meet his son, and we'll see why he has anger management problems. His son's a piece of fucking work. So he takes them to this place where there is this cult, and I'm calling it that because that's what it is, and it's called the Church of the Red Museum. And it's these people dressed in white tunics and red turbans, and they follow this guy named Odin. And what Odin's deal is he's a darn vegetarian, as the sheriff says. And at this point, what is the Simpsons meme? Old man yells at cloud. There's a lot of that in this episode. The sheriff goes off about those darn vegetarians and how they're ruining everything. Now, I will give Chris Carter this. So, this group, this cult, came to town and they turned this beef cattle farm, into like a zoo where they made the cows into pets. And they called it a monument to barbarism because they're against the consumption of meat. They think it's cruel and inhumane. So, one thing that Chris Carter does very well in this episode, and I will give him credit, he is like David Duchovny, okay? I'll give him one thing. You're getting down, okay? Because you're biting me. And I said, if you bite me, you're out. And you're out, okay? I promise you guys, I'm not mean to my cat, but every time she gets in my lap, she has to do this dominance thing. I don't understand it. Cats, man. Explain it, right? What does the Scully mean? Must be an X-file. That's cats. Cats are an enormous X-file. Okay, we don't understand them. So, one thing Chris Carter gets right in the writing of this episode is how these people in this small town are blaming problems on an outside group or an outside influence when the problems are being caused by them, by their community. Now that's very relatable. That's something I see every day, especially in the small towns that I live around. Like, that's a general sentiment. They're like, oh, this thing coming from the outside is what's destroying our community and destroying our youth. It's just you. Like, your kids are shitty. And it's because you're shitty parents and grandparents. That's what's causing the problems here. So, they go into the barn, which has been converted into these people's gathering place, kind of like their tabernacle. This guy Odin rolls up. Oh, he's their leader. He sits down at this computer. He takes a deep breath like this. He goes, and then he just begins to type. He's like, and I said on my Twitter rewatch thread, I said, when Odin sits down to write his creepy cult sermon, it's me sitting down to write NC-17 MSR fanfiction. It's such that vibe. So his co-leader is this woman. And the lady who plays her also played the cult leader on Genderbender, which is a pretty weird-ass way to be typecast, I gotta say. Anyway, she reads out what he's writing, and it's projected too. You're not gonna miss Odin's fan fiction, okay? Again, this is how I write fan fiction. Like, when I write MSR fan fiction, it has to be everyone's problem. Okay. So, he's like telling people like this is the dawning of the age of Aquarius, which, come on, Odin, really? You can't be more original than that. And then, Mulder is telling Scully like, oh, he's talking about walk-ins. I got a lot to say about that. Put a little pin in it. And then Odin's like, the fuck you interrupt me while I'm writing fan fiction. And he like calls out Mulder and Scully and the sheriff. And he's like, hey, look at these guys. They're meat eaters. Aren't they just the fucking worst? Okay. So, he also is saying like, these people need to be taught the way. So it's inciting, you know, that this cult could be capable of violence to turn people to their way of thinking. And this is where the episode begins to fail. So there's X-Files episodes where it's set up and you kind of think, oh, this is going to be one thing. The episode Our Town is a good example. Mulder's like, oh, it's Foxfire spirits, and it's not. Most X-Files episodes are set up that way. This one is set up in that way, but it keeps jumping around to the explanation. Like, when you first go into the episode, you're like, oh, it's demon possession. And then you're like, oh, it's this cult. Oh, it's bovine growth hormone. And then, in the last act of the episode, Chris Carter just hurriedly says, oh, no, actually, it's aliens. And I'm like face palming because, like, okay, I could see it being the cult or the bovine growth hormone because that's hinted at from the very beginning of the episode. But just to shoehorn in the alien subplot is stupid and dumb. And that's what makes the episode ultimately fail. So Mulder and Scully go to see the Canes. And they're talking to Gary, and he's telling them, like, oh, I was in the woods, I was possessed by a demon. Mulder's lapping that shit up, even though, as I said before, when a woman tells him something like this, he cannot call bullshit on it fast enough. So, oh, but isn't Mulder the most feminist character? I keep forgetting, right? So, Scully goes wandering around. I really love how when Mulder and Scully go to a place, one of them does the talking and the other one's just like wandering around. Mulder, that part of his behavior gets pointed out a lot. But Scully does it just as much. And it's autistic and wonderful. I as an autistic person, I do that too. She's snooping around the house, looking at the pictures. And she meets little Stevie, and it's so cute. First of all, Jillian's wearing this giant white pantsuit with a huge collar, which is just so fucking on point. People hate on her season 2 looks, and I'm like, where is that coming from? Like, her looks are amazing. She's got long hair, don't care. And you see her mummy tummy. This is, right after she's given birth. And she's wearing these high-waisted pants with her shirt tucked in. It's very cute, okay? So she bends down to talk to Stevie. I love how Mulder and Scully, get on kids' levels to talk to them. They both, again, how cheated were we that we didn't get to see them raise kids, So, she gets down on Stevie's level. She's talking to him. I love how she says, hi, my name's Dana. And Scully really guards her first name. There aren't many people who use it with her. It's almost like it's a supreme bit of trust for someone to use it. Reyes uses it. I just want to point that out, but Mulder never does. And with kids, Scully immediately is like, oh, my name's Dana, and it's cute. Again, one thing I love about Mulder's personality is how he can relate to kids, because he is kind of a kid, but Scully is also kind of a big kid too. She kind of has little kid-like tendencies, and that's one of the things I love about them. Again, how cheated were we that we didn't get to see them raise kids? They would have been awesome parents. If with a bit of therapy and like working through some stuff. Again, you get the perspective of this creep behind the bathroom mirror watching Scully in the hallway talking to Stevie. And I love how Scully senses that, and she immediately looks up. Scully knows a creep when she precognitively senses one, right? Scully's out there with her instincts in this one, and I fucking love it. So Mulder and Scully get out of there. The sheriff is like, oh yeah, you're staying on. You know, he's ready to close this case and blame it on the Church of the Red Museum. It's also the fact that this episode kind of defends cults, which as a whole are sketches. You know what? Cults are sketch as fuck. It leaves a bad taste in my mouth. At any rate. Mulder's like, hey, yeah, we're going to stay on. Show us a good place to eat. And the sheriff's like, you've come to the right place for that. You cut to a barbecue restaurant. And I think collectively in the fandom, this is a favorite moment in the show. It's an underrated MSR moment. It's very cute. So Mulder and Scully are eating some beef ribs. Whoever says Scully, like, is this delicate person with, like, this picky little appetite is a liar. That girl eats with a capital E, and I fucking love her for it. She has polished off a plate of barbecue ribs. So she tells Mulder, she's like, hey, with ribs like these, the Church of the Red Museum has its work cut out for it. And then Mulder and Scully are wearing barbecue bibs. It's very cute, okay? Scully has some barbecue sauce on the edge of her mouth because she's been raw dogging these ribs. It's also really cute that Scully eats alien barbecue ribs and cannibal fried chicken all in one season. That's nice. I think Scully might have a thing for food that might also be people. So, you know, take that for what it is. All I'm saying is Dana Scully would get along really well with Will Graham from NBC's Hannibal. And Dana Scully and Will Graham are a lot alike. I have a whole red string conspiracy board about that. But that's another podcast for another day, or another review for another day. So Mulder leans over and wipes the barbecue sauce off her mouth. It's so cute. Scully is taken aback by this forwardness and also incredibly charmed and horny. So let's break this down. She looks down. She gives a little uttered thank you when he does that. It's a little blink and you'll miss it moment. And then the shot goes to her. She's still chewing and her eyes are on Mulder's lips. And you see it running through her head. She's off in La La Land, picturing what, she's thinking about meat, but it's not the ribs, baby. And then, I love how she immediately snaps back to reality. She's like, okay, let's talk about walk-ins some more. It's very adorable. So, Scully's horny as fuck in this episode, and I love her. So, Mulder tells her about walk-ins, and it's a thing where, like, well, he explains it. He's like, if you get tired of, like, being a person in reality, I mean, same dude, you become vulnerable to possession by a spirit, and, this is what later on in the series you learn happened to Mulder's sister. There's this dumbass episode in season 7 called Closure where they're trying to give closure to the Samantha storyline, and it's just shit. Like, you can tell they were tired of this storyline and they wanted to wrap it up. That's what it is. And they never reference this. They never bring it up. It's like Scully's Ouroboros tattoo. Like, there's 2 more episodes after she gets the tattoo where they talk about the Ouroboros, and it's never mentioned. So, Again, this show is like continuity. We don't know her. This would have been a great opportunity in the episode closure for them to bring up walk-ins, and now we had a whole fucking thing in Wisconsin about them. So, Mulder and Scully see this kid getting bullied. Also, Scully tells Mulder, she's like, I got the creeps when we were at the K house today. I really like that. Like, again, this is an episode where Scully relies on her instincts, and I really love to see that. Like, Scully's instincts are 98% on point, I'd say. Anyway, Mulder can't be bothered with listening to a woman, so when she talks about her instincts, so, he notices a kid getting bullied on the street. He's a kid from the Church of the Red Museum. Mulder and Scully rush out there to protect him, which is good. How they handle it is not good. So, I think Chris Carter, he writes these teenage characters as though he is an alien who has never met a human teenager before. He is just relying on what he has seen through bad media and after-school specials. Now, that being said, the teenagers here are fun as hell to watch because they're so poorly written. But then the young actors are kind of taking that and doing their own thing with it. And that's pretty fun to see. So we meet Rick, and he turns out to be the sheriff's son. Again, a trope in the X-Files that comes up a lot, like kids of law enforcement officials are shit. And yeah, I see that day to day, sure. So Rick and his friends, he's got this little boyfriend, and then he's got this little girlfriend. And they're always seen, like, running around the town, causing chaos. And then there's this extra kid, and I love how Rick, like, and his friends, when they need an extra guy, they get just this rando kid. Never has any lines or any personality. They're just like, hey, we need a +1. Do you want to come, like, haze some marginalized people? And he's like, oh, okay, yeah, that'll be fun. And he's like, can I go bowling with you guys on Friday? And they're like, nah, there's only room for 3. So that's that kid's story. He also has the exact same haircut my brother had in the year of our Lord 1995. So there's that. Anyway, they're pushing this kid around. Again, I don't think Chris Carter has ever met a teenager, like an actual teenager. I've never seen teenagers act this way outside of, like, after-school specials. So, they're pushing the kid around. Mulder comes up. He's like, hey, fuck off. Like, the kid from the Church of the Red Museum leaves. And then Rick and his friends are gonna rumble with Mulder and Scully like it's West Side Story. So when me and my spouse were rewatching this episode, we got to this point and Mulder was like, okay, so are Mulder and Scully just gonna, like, legitimately beat up some kids? Because that looks where it's going. Mulder's walking out of the restaurant, he's ripping off his bib, he's like, I'm gonna beat up some teenagers. So, Rick and his friends talk shit at Mulder, which is kind of hilarious. And then Scully comes up, wearing her high-waisted skirt, looking adorable. Rick takes one look up at her and he says to Mulder, why don't you run along with the little wife? And the look Scully gives Mulder, she's like, oh, they think I'm his wife. Scully is so fucking horny in this one, okay? She just wants to get laid. That's all she wants. So, the kids trash talk Mulder and Scully, and then the girl of the group, Katie, Rick's girlfriend, notices Scully's gun, and she's like, oh, she's got a gun. And again, I'm like, okay, are Mulder and Scully gonna have, like, this outsiders type rumble with these teenage kids? What's going on? Anyway, Mulder's like, I'm gonna tell on you to your dad, the sheriff. And I'm like, Mulder and Scully, you are FBI agents in your 30s. These are children. You can't fight them. I don't care how big of shits they are. Anyway, Rick and his friends leave because I guess they think the FBI agents are going to shoot him. I don't know. Anyway, and you know Mulder bragged to Scully the whole way back to the hotel. He's like, did you see the way I handled those teenagers, Scully? I was so good. And she was like, yeah, Mulder, you were just going to beat up some kids. So, Rick drives his girlfriend Katie home. And like we see teenagers making out, which I don't want to see. Why is this on my alien show? I fucking hate it. So anyway, she walks behind her house, I guess, and she sees her dog tied up by the trash cans. Her dog is named Pupper Dog, and I'd die for that dog. She's precious. Anyway, she bends down to scratch Pupper Dog, which is just a great name. I mean, that's an on point name. I mean, Katie's a piece of shit, but her dog naming skills are on point. She bends down to scratch Pupper Dog, and Katie gets abducted. And Pupper Dog, carrying on the time-honored tradition of dogs don't give a shit about their owners on the X-Files, looks around nonchalantly and just goes, like, wow. Okay, way to go, Pupper Dog. Like, you could have run back to the house and got help or something, but whatever. So because Pupper Dog drops the ball, very literally, we see Katie a few days later wandering around in her underpants. It's gross and I hate it. She has this hallucination where these crows come down out of the sky and peck her face. And watching that drunk is wild. Warning, don't watch this episode inebriated. That scene will freak you out. And you see the writing on her back. She is one. Wow, this episode, like, really doubles down on, like, child abuse, child endangerment, and it really bothers me. Like, again, why do we need these plots to tell a science fiction story? Like, why do we have to traumatize and torture women and children in order to tell this alien story, Chris Carter? I don't understand. So then, Scully and Mulder are in the hotel room. Every scene in this episode where they are in the motel room together, they look like they have just fucked and they're like putting their clothes back on. Like, Mulder's on the phone with Danny, who helps them out a lot. He's this, I guess this research guy at the FBI. We never see his face. Danny is a lot like, Sarah in the Andy Griffith Show, the phone operator. Like, they're always talking about her. They're always talking to her, but we never see her. It's like a running gag. I really like it. So, Scully's like, yeah, this girl was shot up to her gills with scopolamine, which is this drug that can give you intense hallucinations. And Mulder's like, yeah, this Odin guy, who's the leader of the cult, like, he was a pharmacist. So, and he did some sketchy shit, and he didn't get his license renewed. Also, when Mulder tells Scully this, he, like, turns to her and he's like, I'll drive. It's such a sweet little married moment. I mean, I can see why people keep mistaking them for a married couple here, because they just fucking act like it. They drive over to the Church of the Red Museum. Odin's like, fuck off. You meat eaters aren't coming into my kitchens. And then Mulder and Scully turn around and their rental car is surrounded by the other cult members in their white tunics and red turbans. And I know this scene is supposed to be like ominous and threatening, and it's just fucking hilarious. I've talked about Chris Carter's writing before with episodes like The Jersey Devil or Young at Heart. And one thing the guy has a talent for is he tries to write things that are serious things, and they turn out to be the most hilarious shit you've ever watched. I'm not going to say this episode has that in spades, but this scene, like, it's meme material. I said on my Twitter rewatch thread, all the people surrounding, all the cult members surrounding Mulder and Scully's rental car is what your relatives do when you try to leave a family gathering in the South. It's like, you're leaving? Oh, no, you're not. You're staying for another 4 hours. I don't know what potlucks and family reunions are like where you come from, but in the South, if you come to like a family reunion or a holiday gathering, or a potluck or a funeral or a wedding, just clear your calendar. You're going to be there for at least 24 hours, okay? Mulder and Scully arrest Odin. Don't know how they get him in their rental vehicle, but whatever. They drive him downtown. They're questioning him. One of my favorite obscure X-Files tropes is when Dana Scully, like, it's always a man. When she asks a man a yes or no question, and he just gives her his life story. That's fucking hilarious. She asks Odin, like, hey, do you know about scopolamine? And he just launches into his cult sermon. The sheriff tries to beat him up. Mulder pushes the sheriff outside. Again, the sheriff is having anger management issues. He probably needs therapy. And he doesn't need to have a gun, as we see later on. So then the sheriff pops back in. He's like, hey, there's trouble downtown. The rest of the Church of the Red Museum, led by the lady from Genderbender, is in front of the barbecue restaurant picketing. This scene is classic. Again, the most unintentionally hilarious shit. The woman's like, he's giving this speech about the wisdom of the gods. You just hear this townie. He's off. He's not in the scene. You just hear him shriek, we don't care about the wisdom of the gods. Fucking love that guy. Give him all the Emmys. We never see his face. Okay. So then Rick, the sheriff's piece of shit son, pulls up in his Bronco, which is amazing. Why does this piece of shit kid get the most amazing vehicle? And he pours cow blood on the lady, the co-leader. The sheriff, like, wrestles his son off. Scully says, you kind of need a scorecard to see who the villains are. I like that. Okay, so I think this episode is trying to make a statement about how when there are problems in a community or a society, how people immediately want to blame an outsider or an outside influence when it's rotten from within. The problem's coming from within, which is in the case here. However, the Church of the Red Museum are all straight white people. Like, if you wanted to tell this story well, first of all, they should have had minority or marginalized people in the writer's room writing this story. And they should have had a marginalized or minority group as the one the community is blaming. That would have been a stronger story. But then I'm kind of relieved that they didn't go that path, because you know how well the X-Files handles stories about marginalized or minority people. They fucking don't. So I'm kind of glad they didn't go to that path. So, there's this old man in a pickup truck. He signals to Scully, and she goes over there. And he's like, hey, you the FBI agents? She's like, yeah. He's like, you want to take a ride with me? And her and Mulder are like, okay, Gramps, let's go for a ride. And I'm like, no. Mulder and Scully do not do that. That is stranger danger. So you see Mulder and Scully like riding in the pickup truck with the old man, taking them to God knows where, right? And you see Mulder kind of glance over at him. My eye is itching for some reason. It's these darn gnats. And you see Mulder kind of pensively glance over at him, and then he shares this look with Scully, and the look that passes between them are like, yeah, we could take out this old man if we wanted to. So Mulder and Scully not only want to beat up teenagers, they also just want to beat up an old man. That's great. I love that. So he takes them to this cow pasture, and these people are inoculating these cows with bovine growth hormone. The old man goes into this long speech about how the darn kids and their rock music are ruining society. That's basically what he's saying. My spouse said, what if the old man was just lonely? He was like one of those lonely old people that's by himself a lot, and he just wants the 2 FBI agents to spend time with him. Like, that would be sweet. So, he goes on and on about the government and how they're shooting up food with hormones, and that's what's turning our youths into monsters. It's also interesting that the X-Files will show you these characters. I'm thinking about Max Finnig. And then you look at Mulder and you're like, without Scully, this is what Mulder would turn into. Like, old man yelling at cloud. Like, Scully, you know, saved Mulder pretty much. Like, Mulder would have turned into this old man without Scully. Like, that's pretty much it. So, and, like, made no headway on the X-Files without her. There's zero way he would have made any kind of headway on the X-Files. So Scully's like, oh, but these things have been approved by the FDA, and the old man's like, oh, who tells you that? The government? And I'm like, yeah, Dana Scully, like, you've been abducted by men who have, from the government, who have performed these horrific tests on you. Like, why would you not believe they would be capable of this? And yeah, like, I think Scully kind of began her adult life with, like, trusting in authority figures. Hell, Mulder does. And he goes throughout the series and does. You see Scully lose her faith in government authority figures very quickly, especially after her abduction. And Mulder never kind of does. Like, I rewatched Soft Light, and Mulder just, like, gives the keys to the kingdom to Mr. X, even though he knows he's sketch as fuck. So, like, Mulder never stops doing that. Like, all you have to do to win Mulder's trust is be this, mysterious, edgy, middle-aged government guy. And that's all you have to do, and Mulder will trust you implicitly. But that line from Scully bothers me. I'm like, girl, you have been tortured and traumatized by men from the government. Why would you put this past them? So, then you get this weird, scene, where there's, like, a time lapse, and you see the same cow pasture at night. There's this plane, there's this doctor on there, the plane's losing oil pressure, and the plane crashes. I don't know a lot about planes and how to fly them, but the scene of the plane, like, going through the air and then just immediately nosediving into the woods always cracks me up. I'm sorry. So then the next morning, they go out to the plane crash. Turns out this guy on the plane was a doctor, and he was giving kids, quote, vitamin shots, which is, in the context of the episode, code for alien goo, to make them stronger. The joke my spouse and I had was, okay, these parents will literally have their kids shot up with an alien virus instead of watch them be benched at a football game. And I told my spouse, I was like, that would seem strange and bizarre, but I live in the South and I know parents who would absolutely do that. They were like, oh, my kid can't play college ball. Put that alien virus in them. Where do I sign up? So, like, yeah, football is the religion of the South. Some people might say it's evangelical Christianity. It's not. It's football. Okay. People love football down here more than Jesus. All right. So, Mulder and Scully go back to see the Canes. They ask Miss K, they're like, we're here to talk to you now. She tells Mulder and Scully, she's like, oh, she's talking about her son. Scully's like, did you notice your son being sick or anything? And she's like, oh no, Gary was never sick a day in his life. Like, meaning that sincerely, not being sarcastic. And I'm like, okay, your son was going to this sketch-ass doctor to get, quote, vitamin shots you never knew about. And then you're like, oh, and he never got sick. And you don't think that's fucking strange, woman? Like, have you lived with a child in public school? They bring home every sickness known to man. There are diseases in the CDC in Atlanta that have not been discovered that kids in second grade bring home. Okay? I live with a 7-year-old. I know about this. Okay. So then Mulder goes, like, he's wandering around the house while Scully's talking, kind of like how they exchange roles there. And he sees this light coming from behind the mirror, and he breaks it, like the bathroom mirror, and he finds this fucking video studio with like a camera set up, all these tapes, and yep, a creep is living in your walls. All the things in this episode, that the kids being shot up with alien virus, the demon possession, the cults, the fucking weird ass hallucinations, this is the scariest damn thing. Like, this is my fear. Someone being in my home and I don't know they're there and they're watching me. Like, that's terrifying. Again, this pedophile, not very smart, keeps all of his tapes right there. I mean, that's all the evidence they need. I don't know why he thinks someone wouldn't find him out eventually. They bring this guy in. He's named Gerd, and I hate him. Okay. He justifies to Mulder. He's like, hey, I really loved those kids, and that's why I was abducting them and writing these things on them, because I loved them. And I'm like, fuck you. Mulder looks like he wants to come across the table and strangle this man, which is good. But later on, when Scully tells Mulder, she's like, do you think this is the guy, the creep who's doing all of this trouble in the community? And Mulder refers to the pedophile as a, quote, poor soul. And I'm like, fuck you, Mulder. This won't be the last time Mulder makes excuses for child abusers. I'm thinking of the episode Trevor. I cannot wait till we get to that episode and I can tear Mulder a new asshole for his behavior there. There is a just hardcore woman and child abuser in that episode, and at the end Mulder's like, but he just wanted a second chance. We should feel sorry for him. And I'm like, Mulder! Like, that is one of Mulder's personality traits. And when he acts this way, like, not believing women who have been sexually assaulted, or like making excuses for pedophiles and child abusers, people are like, oh, that's so OOC for Mulder. And I'm like, no, that's part of his personality. Like, he consistently does that throughout the show. And then in the movie, I want to believe, like, he's making justifications for this honest-to-God pedophile. Like, Mulder, a pedophile was creeping on your sister, and you're making excuses for them. I'm like, fuck you, dude. That's awful. So after Mulder does that good bit of victim blaming, wow. Holy shit. Um, the Scully's like, yeah, what the doctor is carrying is purity control. What we found in the Erlenmeyer flask in season 1. Mulder grabs Scully. He rushes outside. He's like, do you know what you're saying, Scully? Earlier on, Mulder and Scully pass this car on the highway and she sees this guy. And she's like, I know that face. People go on and on about Mulder's photographic memory, and they never say anything about Scully's photographic memory, but girls out there with it. Again, Scully is just leaning hard into her instincts in this episode, and I fucking love it. Again, how different would this show and Scully's character arc have been if she had had someone with her who had been encouraging her about her precognitive abilities? It ain't Mulder. Mulder takes every opportunity to shit on them. But, excuse me. Ooh, I'm so sorry. Reyes. I wish Reyes had been in the show earlier on and had been with Scully and had been like, yeah, your precognitive powers are there and valid and you need to trust in them. That's beautiful. In season 8 and 9, Reyes and Scully are always having these exchanges. I wish Scully had had someone like her. Because Mulder ain't it. He's always shitting on it and gaslighting Scully. Yeah, again, which is just a facet of his personality. It's not OOC for him. Then, when Scully's telling Mulder about the purity control being shot up into these poor kids, she tells Mulder, she's like, the guy we passed on the highway, I know I recognized him. That's the guy who killed Deep Throat. And she whispers it to Mulder in this way. She's like, he's the man who killed Deep Throat. She goes, Deep Throat. I don't know why she says Deep Throat in the most adorable way, but she fucking does. I want to pinch her little cheeks. She's so cute. So, Mulder wigs out. He tells Scully, he's like, get all the kids who have been injected with these, quote, vitamin shots. We've got to protect them because this government goon who killed Deep Throat's going around, cleaning up and just fucking killing kids. He kills the sheriff's son, Rick, in a just heart-wrenching moment. You see the sheriff, come out and find his son dead in the field and, cradle him. And it triggers all my anxieties as a mom. Again, Chris Carter, why do we need this to tell an alien story? I don't understand why you have to traumatize women and children to do this. Fuck you, Chris Carter. The Sex Files podcast says, we have to come up with new names to call Chris Carter. He's that terrible. So then Mulder turns to Scully dramatically and he's like, Scully, I want him alive. And I'm like, okay, Mulder, you've beat up teenagers. You wanted to beat up an old man. And now you're just gonna fucking kill this dude, I guess, with your bare hands. But then you make excuses for a pedophile. Okay, whatever, Mulder. Fuck you. So, Scully and the sheriff go round up the kids. They bring them to the Church of the Red Museum. That seems to be the biggest, safest place to keep a lot of people in at one time. Don't know why this community doesn't have a stadium or a gymnasium, but whatever. And I get it. We got to show this community coming together and we don't have differences after all. Red Museum is the after school special of season 2, I think. So then Scully asked the sheriff, she's like, where's Mulder? And he's like, oh, he just told me to get the kids safe. He said he had to do something. And at this point, I was screaming at the TV. I was like, Fox Mulder, tell your FBI partner where you're going and what you're doing. You are a horrible FBI partner, Fox Mulder. Because Mulder does that. Okay? He'll go off into places that are dangerous. And he knows Scully will follow him and then subsequently put her in danger. And then this shit of telling Scully, oh, Scully, don't follow me. But then giving her no more information than that. Of course she's going to follow you. She doesn't want your ass to die, motherfucker. And then he puts both of them in danger. When if he had talked with Scully about this. Scully's smarter than you, Mulder. If he could put his ego aside for 2 seconds and realize that, they could sort this out in a safer way. Fuck Fox Mulder. Anyway, he goes to the slaughterhouse where this creep is like pouring gasoline. He's going to set the place on fire. Mulder's dumbass goes in there after he smells the gasoline and fucking tastes it. Okay. So, a lot of talk is going around about the Grimace shake at McDonald's. Happy birthday, Grimace, by the way. If you babies don't know who Grimace is, Google it. It's this purple shake. It looks terrible. It looks like the purity control in this episode that they're injecting the cows and the kids with. The guy's gonna torch the place. Mulder goes in there anyway. I wanted to say, with all the evidence Mulder has eaten, he probably wouldn't mind drinking the Grimace shake. It would probably taste amazing to him, is what I'm saying. So, he goes in there. The guy swings on one of the meat hooks and knocks Mulder out, which is just fucking funny. Again, Chris Carter trying to be serious and ominous, and it's just the funniest shit you've ever seen. And then the sheriff comes in and shoots the motherfucker. And Mulder yells at the guy, and I'm on the sheriff's side for once. Like, this guy shot his kid, and this is probably the only justice this guy's gonna see. Like, the government's gonna quietly disappear this man or, like, get him off. So, this is the only justice he's gonna see, so he shoots the motherfucker. And then you get a coda. The barbecue restaurant has been closed down because it has alien beef ribs, which Scully ate. Did Scully get her immortality by eating the alien beef ribs in this episode and then the cannibal fried chicken in Our Town? Is what I'm wondering. Is that how she became immortal? Hey, it wasn't her abduction. Yes, I know. I love you, but you've got to start being good, okay? Okay. So, then you have this coda. Early on in the series, at the end of an episode, Mulder or Scully would come on and, like, talk about the case through narration. And as the series progresses, they don't do that anymore. And that's sad. I really like that. Like, I love to hear a Mulder log and a Sculliloquy, as I call them, when they narrate. And I'm kind of sad that the show discontinued that. So that is Red Museum. I hope you're having a great summer. We're going to kick off and go to the beach this summer, and we're very excited. My 7-year-old is super excited. She loves the beach. I'm okay about the beach, but my daughter's just crazy about it. Follow me on Tumblr. I am at Just Awful X-Men Art. Follow me on Twitter. I am at raccoons_dead. Follow me on Instagram. I am at deadraccoonsdrawsit. Or follow me on DeviantArt. I am at dead/raccoons. Tell me what underrated X-Files episode you want me to talk about. I love all you beautiful people. Stay cool. Stay hydrated. I love you. Mwah. Watch out for alien beef ribs.